I am a human being and I killed human beings.
Before I knew it, I'd fired 4 shots at the door. I kept on shouting for Eva to phone the police.
Tests are underway to determine if a serial killer is on the loose in Centurion, Pretoria.
The dead won't bother you. It's the living you got to worry about.
In South Africa, 75 people are murdered every day, and behind every number is a name, a family, and a story that unfortunately rarely makes the front pages these days. Welcome back to Profiler Africa. I'm Paul Llewellyn. I just wanted to start by saying a big thank you to everyone. Thanks so much for your response to South African Serial. We've been getting so much awesome feedback. New episode is up already for members on the Jose da Silva case. I was corrected by a Portuguese person this week, so hopefully I got it right that time. A case where Gerard believes they caught a potential serial killer after his first murder. That's live to all on Thursday at 8 a.m. So keep watching and sharing. We have plenty of episodes to go, and then a great new series lined up after that. Also, hopefully Profiler is starting to become a part of the furniture there at home. Last week here on Profiler, we dissected the official stats, and Dr. Krista Koch helped us interrogate some myths around farm attacks. And judging by the comments section, well, let's just say it's been great reading all your comments this week. I will say we are really just here to have a chat and to try to cut through some of the clutter with professionals who have actual relevant experience. We're not trying to take anyone's side. We hope to stay on the side of truth as much as possible, but more about that later. Now, this week we move from numbers to names, from theory to blood-soaked reality. Tonight's guest has seen that reality up close and personal. Gawie Saki Loden spent 26 years in the SAPS, working everything from Muti killings to serial murders. He's investigated over 300 rural attacks, including some of the worst the country has ever seen. So tonight, he has earned his opinion, that's for sure. Now, through his non-profit, Bosveld Misdaad Ondersoeke, he's still chasing down justice, especially in the cases that the state would rather forget, and we'll be unpacking some cases on the show tonight. Before I say hi to Gerard, if you value true crime without the sugarcoating, hit subscribe and join the chat. If you want early access, bonus content, and to help us stay independent and bringing you great shows like SA Serial, then hit join below. And I've also put the link in the episode description. Also, if you'd like to sponsor or advertise on the show, please do reach out. And you can reach out to profilerafricainfo@gmail.com. That's profilerafricainfo@gmail.com. Okay, as always, I am joined by South Africa's top forensic psychologist, former head of SAPS Forensic Psychology Section, Gerard Labuschagne. Hi, Gerard.
Hello, Paul, and hello, everybody who's watching.
Yes, shall we not beat around the bush? And I will hand over to you, Gerard, to basically welcome tonight's guest.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. So, as you know, we've always liked to bring on people who are knowledgeable, who have the experience to back up whatever they're saying, and retired or resigned ex-Colonel, Lieutenant Colonel Saki Loden, someone that I've known since the early 2000s, if I recall correctly. In fact, Saki, I think the first time I met you was, if I'm not mistaken, in Tavazimbi, in the back of a bottle store. We were on our way to work on a farm murder case, and we all met up with you there and had a few drinks in the back of a bottle store before we moved on to the up to where the case was going to be, if I recall correctly. I might be mistaken.
That's correct, Prof. Definitely, it's true.
So welcome, and obviously, as the bio says, you're a man with countless years of experience. I mean, you had 26 years in SAPS, and we're going to ask you just to kind of walk us through how you became a cop, why did you become a cop? But you had 26 years of experience in SAPS, left the SAPS as a lieutenant colonel, and then you went into the private investigation work, which you do now, working also on violent crime cases. But perhaps as a starting point, how did you become a cop? Was this sort of a family thing? Was it something you just always thought of? And perhaps just walk us quickly through your career so that people who are going to listen to what you have to say afterwards also understand where you're coming from with your views.
Yes, thanks, Prof. Paul, for having me. Thank you for the viewers. Prof, I joined the police. My older brother, one of my older brothers, was in justice. He was a prosecutor, and then my other brother, Louwrens, was in special task force, also a police member, so it runs in the family. That's when I decided to join the police. Early in my career, I joined in 1989, 1990. I already moved over to investigations department, small station called Templas. Then I went on to detectives, obviously. From detectives, I went on to murder and robbery unit where I served for a while. From there, I became detective commander at Abazimbi, Denelton, various other places. Then I went to provincial detectives where I worked specific crime investigations. I also dealt a lot with you guys with the serial killings, murders, farm attacks, house robberies, specific crimes, high-profile cases involved in that. And yeah, I was in Limpopo. Most of my career was in Limpopo, and I left in 2015 after 26 years and decided to still continue, obviously, with the investigations, but to do it privately. And that's where we are today, still busy with fighting the crime and still trying to do our best.
Yeah, and as I said, I mean, you've worked on such a wide range of crimes. I mean, like I said, one of the big ones we worked on was the Modimolle serial murderer, not to be confused with the Modimolle monster. That's another guy. And that was a guy who was raping and killing little children, and I think he rapes an adult woman. And that was quite an impressive case. And maybe one day we can have a chat about that case alone, because I think that was quite a phenomenally done investigation. But in your time in SAPS, I mean, you've specifically worked on a lot of farm attacks. I mean, how many, if you just had to guess, how many farm attacks, farm murders would you say that you've worked on in your career?
Prof, serious violent crimes, definitely more than 300. It's difficult to say the exact number, but definitely quite a lot. As I say, more than 300, as I was involved in investigation, pointing out several forms of investigation. I was involved in several rural cases, house robberies, farm attacks, farm murders, other serious violent crimes. Yeah, definitely over 300, Prof.
Okay, and that's in and outside of SAPS?
That's correct. It's a lot of them in SAPS, but afterwards, as I say, I'm still busy with it, still continuing with the same thing, just outside of SAPS now. But I still work a lot with SAPS.
Sorry. If I may ask, obviously we always like to ask people who leave SAPS before they retired, what was the sort of reason that you felt at that point in time that it was the right time for you to go to?
Yeah, so Prof, I think I had the experience by that time. The other thing is the system started to fail a guy. It felt like the system was going nowhere. The serious violent crimes units, the murder and robbery units, all the specialized units were closing down. It became a challenge to do what you love to do or what you used to do or what you're good in, and became a challenge in SAPS, and that's the reason for moving. As I say, I still work hand in hand with SAPS, but I just felt it was time to move on and take it to another level.
Because I mean, that's interesting because you went basically to do private investigations. I don't know if you did anything else in between. And you started up Bosveld Misdaad Ondersoek, or Bushveld Crime Investigation, for those of you who don't speak Afrikaans. And what's, I think, unique, look, I always, having been in the police, always had a very healthy suspicion of any private investigators. I've never kind of personally, my own experiences was there are always chances. They're always just trying to make a quick buck. They don't necessarily know what they're doing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But you've definitely, over the years, curated this niche where you work a lot with SAPS. I mean, usually the two, SAPS and private investigators don't talk to each other. But you work a hell of a lot with the South African police. And how is it that you kind of managed to get that right, that you kind of are literally working hand in hand with them?
Well, Prof, as I say, I was in the police for 26 years in Limpopo, and everybody knows me in Limpopo. And as we are a non-profit, we don't go out and invoice people. We help people. When we started the non-profit in line of the serious violent crimes and endangered species units, we decided to do it as a non-profit because we felt it's not the right thing to ask people on farms or small holdings or people that don't have the financial ability to be helped. We decided to do a non-profit or start a non-profit so they can assist everybody that are involved, or most of the people involved, doesn't matter their financial position or whoever they are. And regarding the work with SAPS, we just approach SAPS in the right way, and SAPS knows us, and we go to them and we really help them, we assist them. We don't try to take over or try to tell them what to do. We've got a very good relation from provincial level at the highest level to the lowest investigators on the ground. We're still known to them, and as I say, we really work hand in hand and we share information and we do things with them, with their knowledge, and so it works for us at this stage.
And when you say us, I mean, how many people do you have working for you?
At Bosveld Misdaad Ondersoek, it's only myself that's permanently employed, Prof, but I use guys on a consultation basis like Johan Ellis, who's also an old murder and robbery detective, Scorpions. He helps me a lot with investigation, and we involve other parties that I don't want to go into that help us with specialized stuff, but I pay them a consultation fee. They're not employed permanently by BM or Boschok Misdaadondersoek.
Okay, great. Now, I mean, we've chatted previously about some of the cases you've worked on, and obviously one of the themes we wanted to get to, continuing from last week's theme about the farm attacks, farm murders. But which are ones that kind of stand out for you in your career, pre-SAPS or SAPS or after SAPS, that kind of just stand out for you, and kind of why do those particular cases stand out for you?
Well, there are a few. We can start in 1999. There was a murder on the Van der Merwe couple just outside of Nelspruit, where the victim was shot, the man was shot, the lady was raped, and her throat was cut while she was still alive by two nationals from Zimbabwe. We traced them. We went into Zimbabwe to arrest them. It took us about 3 weeks, non-stop, to trace these guys, but it stood out for me because of the brutality of the attack, and it was really a gruesome murder. As I say, the lady was still alive when they slit her throat and stuff. So it's very gruesome and horrific crime scene to do. And
I mean, how
then I can move on to...
Yeah, go, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine, Prof. Ask.
How would it differ now? Because obviously, you know, when in SAPS, you said you worked in a murder and robbery unit, or you worked in a team of people. Do you kind of pull together a team as per the case requires and boost it with some SAPS members, or how do you approach it differently now compared to when you were in SAPS?
Yeah, Prof, as I say, I use some people that do consultation fee that help me, but we work hand in hand with investigation officers. We go to them, approach them, they know us well. As I say, we work with them. We do it to certain stuff. There's obvious stuff outside of police that we get it quicker than they can without trying to say the police can't do stuff, but there's things that we can help with, things that we can assist with that goes quicker. But we work hand in hand with the IOs. The IO investigation officer, sorry for using the term IO, no, everybody is not clued up with that, means the investigation officer. So we work hand in hand with them, and we do things together with them. If you have to go and arrest suspect, we go with them. We involve them in the case, and we just help them, and they help us with things we need. So we've got a very good relation regarding that in the cases.
Okay, and you're going to mention there were a few other cases that stand out for you. What's another one?
Prof, we had a case in Dwaalboom also in the early 2000s. It's Bokkie Gerber had a farm at Kroondal just outside of Rustenburg where he planted instant lawn, and he had Mozambican guys employed, and then he also had a farm at Dwaalboom where local guys were working from South Africa, and then those guys went to the farm in Dwaalboom, the guys from the from the farm, Kroondal farm near Rustenburg. And they approached the guys wearing balaclavas, and they tied up the workers there. There was an old man and his wife and a young lady that just started working there. And during the incident, the suspects who wore the balaclavas asked the old man if he recognized them. And unfortunately, he said, "Yes, Joseph, I know you." And then they were bludgeoned with four-pound hammers. They were hit over the head several times. The blood was all over the curtains. Very, very gruesome scene, but they killed them because, unfortunately, the old man said he knew them. So that's also one that stands out for me. It's a very, very gruesome attack.
And then the ones you've worked on since you've left SAPS, I mean, have you noticed there's a difference in farm attacks from a couple of years ago versus now, or is it kind of the same kind of crimes? They look kind of similar, or has there been a difference over the years in terms of the farm attacks?
No, Prof, it stays the same. It's usually a farm, as I say, a stranger never attacks a farm. There's always a connotation. It's always a worker that's there. It's a contract worker, somebody that knows the farm. I did 99% of the attacks I did was people that know the farm. They've got a connection to the farm and means, as I say, work there, contract workers, have relatives there. A stranger doesn't attack a farm. So that stays the same. I can also put it out there that most of the horrific, gruesome scenes is sometimes or usually foreigners, Zimbabweans, Mozambicans. Our local people also get violent sometimes, but out of experience, it's more the foreigners that are very brutal and very, they torture a lot and stuff like that. And the torturing also, you can go into that and why it happens. It's obvious that people want the valuables in the houses. They torture to get the valuables. That's most of the reasons for it. And as I say, most of the killings take place because the perpetrators are known to the victims.
And I mean, if they're known, was there usually some negative history between the two, or is it not necessarily the case?
Not always, Prof. You'll get people who say, oh, the workers were badly treated. It's not always the case. Sometimes the workers and the people have got a good relation. They just leave for reasons unknown, but there's not always a bad. Sometimes there's a bad relation. Like in life, there's always bad and good relations, but it's not necessary to say that the victims treated their people bad. That I didn't pick that up as always the case.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned some of the more recent ones. You guys have had some pretty good successes. Which cases were those?
Yes, Prof. We had the murder case where the Claessens were murdered at the Echo Caves. They were murdered by a guy that worked there. He previously broke into the premises and stole money. He went back again, and then he tried to open the safe. Obviously, the safe was changed, the locks and stuff. I don't want to go into too much detail of the case, but it was a worker that knew the place. He was known to the victims, and he murdered them both and set them alight in the houses, Prof. That was the one case. Then at Lydenburg, there was a... Okay, sorry, that's the case we're talking about now. This guy we traced and arrested in Tembisa. He moved in from Tembisa and committed the murder, and he moved back again. But he was well known in the area. He grew up in the area. He knew the victims. This Lydenburg is the one that I started to discuss now. It's Mozambican guys. The one guy was employed on the small holding, and they got the keys from the lady who worked in the house. The domestic worker was murdered, and the keys were taken from her, and that's how the house was opened to get to the lady staying there. She was seriously assaulted with a panga. Luckily, she was not killed or murdered, and those people were also arrested in Lydenburg. The one guy was actually packing. He was on his way to Mozambique. We were very lucky to arrest in the morning just before he left.
I mean, as you very, very well know, arresting is only part of the process. I mean, the convictions in court, do you find that for a lot of these cases, that you're getting good convictions for all the people who were involved?
Yes, Prof. The investigation is done properly, and they get good sentences. Mostly it's life and a few other years with it running concurrently, obviously. But most of the cases, there's life sentence. So there's definitely a good sentence on the cases that are investigated properly.
And do you find that a lot of these would then go to the High Court for prosecution, or some still, get heard in the regional court?
Prof, most of them go to the High Court. Fortunately, most of them are moved to the High Court. Some of them stay in the regional court, but I find that most of these cases go to High Court.
Mm-hmm. And do you think, who nowadays, because as you said, back in our days, it was serious and violent crime units who were dealing with these kind of cases. Prior to that, it was murder and robbery units. Are these cases, on average, left just to the general station detectives to investigate, typically, as far as you know?
Yes, Prof, that becomes quite a problem because it's left with them, and some of the young guys, they really still want to work and they really want to try, but the experience is a problem. The leadership there as you say, we were specialized units. We're into a senior murder already being 10, 15 guys with a whole lot of experience. Now it's a young guy that gets the dockets. He tries his level best, but he really wants to work, but there's the leadership and the knowledge and the stuff. And as I said, they're trying to open the murder and robbery units again, as I understand, right? But the concern is the experience of the guys that have to work there. You can't take a detective. You know for yourself. If you go to murder and robbery, you've got years of experience. You're a specialized guy. You're built for that job, if I can put it that way. So to try and go and say you're going to open a specialized unit now, it's fine, but the experience is gone and left. That's hard to say, but that's the truth.
Paul. Oops, you're muted.
Okay, there we go. Sorry, I get the first strike on hitting the mute button tonight. Normally, Gerard wins that competition. I'm the winner tonight. So we've got some welcomes. Hi, Quibus, who's joining us for the first time. Great to have you with us. Also to, who else did I want to say hi to? First time on your live chat. From Nora? Here we go. Let's pop this one up. First time on your live chat. What phenomenal work you guys do, and the guest speakers add the spice. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Naran. Okay, some questions. First of all, I think we covered this one just now, but just as a reminder, do you find that most of these types of crimes are usually committed by people known to the victims?
Yes, Bill. Now, as I answered previously, 99.9% of the cases I've done, the victims and the perpetrators are known to each other, definitely. Okay. Strange people don't attack farms. You don't get that. It's a very rare situation there.
Okay. And then from Daniela, what are the legal limitations, Sakkie, if any, with the kind of work that you do, considering it is a NGO?
Yeah, as I say, there are limitations, but we still work with the police and with the justice system. We still work with the guys, and you work around the challenges. There will always be challenges. I mean, for myself, I had all the authority and power being colonel in the police to do certain things, to demand certain things, to see that certain things are done. So that becomes a challenge. You have to ask people to do certain things. You can't do it in the old way anymore. If I could put it, you're not in charge anymore. You're not a policeman anymore. But as I say, luckily we've got a good relation with the police most of the time. So there are legal limitations, but we work around it.
Yeah.
And I would assume that you're also, serial registered in terms of the Security Industry Regulation Act. And I mean, you do all the necessary required things for private investigations. And private investigators can do quite a bit, but you're not SAPS. So there will always be some limitations on stuff, if I kind of sum it up.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely registered here as a private investigator. Yes, Prophet, but there are some limitations, as I just explained now. But you have to work around it. It's challenges that come your way. Like always, you just have to work around it and still do the job.
Okay. I've got another one to jump in here, guys. This kind of relates back to last week's. I'm not sure if you caught last week's episode, Sakkie. You don't need to have, but thanks for being on the show. And did you watch last week's? Do you agree with the stats? What I'm going to ask you is just a more general question about, the official statistics that are released by SAPS. This seems to be a point of contention where people, want to also talk about how accurate we can consider those statistics to be. How do you feel about, what we get out of SAPS from a statistics point of view when it comes to the numbers of particular crimes that are happening around the country?
I think the stats that they put out are there, and the people must just understand that they refer to house robbery sometimes. Other people want it to be related as they must talk about a farm attack or farm murder. Unfortunately, those words or those things don't assist. They are not part of the police's crime that they report. They talk about house robbery and stuff like that. So sometimes I think the ball falls there that the people don't understand when they talk about a house robbery. It's not actually a farm attack or a farm invasion or whatever. It's just called a house robbery, or that's the legal term for it in the police. So but the stats overall I think is correct.
Okay. And then I just have another, how do you feel about this notion then? I mean, we talked a little bit about motive there then, and the fact that, a lot of the 99% of the victims are known, perpetrators, they know one another. How do you feel about this notion that there's potentially some kind of a political conspiracy, or that there is a political motive behind a lot of these attacks, if you like? Sure, that may be the motivation on some, but what would your comments be on that being the kind of the case in general?
No, as I say, mostly in our years of experience, my years of experience, we pick it up as financial gain. It's for robbery purposes, it's for financial gain. I mean, I don't want to go heavily into the politics, but the things of the chanting, kill the boer, kill the farmer, the things that are said, obvious, it's not a good thing. You can't say it. It's not necessary to say those things. If it really impacts on the attacks that currently occur, I'm not so sure. But if you say a thing over and over, why do you do it? What's the purpose of it? But as I say, political involvement, no, I think it's financial gain at this stage, and it's robbery. And unfortunately, we live in a violent country, as we all know. Murders, robberies are all over the show. It's not only farmers are attacked, obviously, but it's all over the show. Violent crime is out of hands in South Africa completely.
And obviously, I mean, if we're talking murder, violence, for example, is obviously inherent in that. But the levels of murder is something which comes up as well. I mean, do you see that the cases you work on across the spectrum when it comes to a crime like murder, that there is an excessive use of violence generally, or is it focused on particular types of murders? Where the really extreme level of torture, etc.
As I say, the torture and stuff comes in on the farm attacks because obviously, or the farm smallholding, but it also happens in house robberies and towns and stuff. It's a way of getting people to hand over their valuables and stuff. So the torture is excessive, but I think it's a thing that happens all over the board, across the board, not only in the farm attacks. Obviously, the farm attacks are gruesome and horrific, and the people are mostly elderly people. It's victims that stay alone. It's the easy target, all that kind of stuff. But the violence our country is just known for a violent background in crime. Prof, I know you can maybe
Yeah.
give you input on that, but that's how I see it.
Yeah,
And what's the most common stuff? I mean, like you said it's financially motivated. So I mean, what is the most common stuff that they're out to get?
Profits, usually they've got a consumption, or they think it's assumption that there's money on the farms. Mostly they're after money. They also will get there, and obviously they'll ask you where's your safe, because the safe is where you put your valuables, but it's mostly firearms, money, vehicles, stuff that they can resell again or that they can gain financially from. But usually they look for money, as I say. That's the big thing is money. And then firearms, vehicles, TV, anything that they can resell. TV. That's why I say it's for financial gain. It's obvious financial gain that they commit the attacks.
And in your experience, I mean, how many people are typically involved in such an attack? I mean, you might not always catch everybody, but the typical amount of or gang of people, is it, 1, 5, 6 people?
Profit depends. Like this case of Echo Caves and this last case now of Seneca was one perpetrator only, one guy, but it differs. Usually, most of the cases, I'd say between 3 and 6. That's about it. But it's difficult to put a number on it. But between 3 and 6 is about the groups that come in. And the thing of heat squads that come in, and that's not true. There's no heat squads. If it was heat squads, they would come in with bulletproof, assault rifles, stun grenades, whatever it is. There's not heat squads. It's people, it's normal people that commit crime.
So, I mean, when people throw around terms like genocide, if I'm putting what you're saying together, I mean, you wouldn't describe these types of things, as horrific as they are, as this organized campaign to eliminate a type of people, Afrikaner farmers. That's not your experience, if I understand correctly.
No, Prophet. I say the crime in South Africa over the whole spectrum is just violent, and there's many murders committed all over the show. It's not good that the people are murdered on the farms. Obvious, it's impacting our economics, and it's not good, but it's happening all over the show. I won't say it's specific them that are targeted.
Okay.
You might not know this, but I mean, it touches on what you've just said, the impact of targeting farmers. What typically happens to the farm after these types of attacks? Does a family member take it over? Does it go on auction?
That's becoming a big problem because the young people don't want to be on the farms anymore. You get more and more that the people in the rural areas, it's getting unpopulated. The people move away, and the impact of a farm attack, I mean, if you go and look at that, it's the farm workers that lose their job. It's people in the vicinity that have been employed there. There come seasonal workers in. Some of the farms even get 1,500, 2,000, 2,500 people that come in, seasonal workers. That all stops. And if it continues, as I say, most of the families move away. You get a lot of families that say they don't want to be on farms anymore. Most of the young people say it's too dangerous. Myself, I'll never stay on a farm permanently. Never in my life.
As a result of your experience, obviously, I'm guessing.
That's correct, Prof. Because part of the experience, and I know what people on farms are. So I myself, never in my life. Unfortunately, I know people have to do it. People do have an income through it. They have to, but I won't. It's too dangerous, according to me.
And I think that's what we commented on last time. Even if there's not this organized campaign to eliminate a group of people like a genocidal thing, when you target farms, they provide the food. If you don't have food security, your country isn't secure. I mean, we saw that with the war in Ukraine, when that started, our prices here of flour and sunflower oil jumped up dramatically because we don't typically produce enough of that anymore for ourselves. So I do think it's a valid argument to say that from a point of national security and food security, definitely something has to be done. And I don't know what you think. What in your ideal world could be done to reduce these types of attacks?
Yeah, Prof, obviously it's a concern. If you go and look at our bordering countries, go and look at Zimbabwe, go and look at Mozambique, look how it's going there without farmers there. I mean, it's rolling over to us now, and it's becoming a big problem. As I say, the people don't want to farm anymore. It becomes a bigger challenge with the economical stuff today, with the tax and stuff. So, I don't know. The rural safety is very difficult. Every farmer, every guy on a farm is responsible for his own security. There's no company in the world that's going to tell me they're going to guard farmers or going to look after farmers. It's just not possible. It's too far apart. It's too, in the rural, as I say, that's not possible. As I say, catch the people, convict them. We saw that in the murder and robbery unit. You decrease the stuff, obviously, when you catch the people. Proactive. Luckily, I can take the Waterberg, for example, where I'm staying. There's cameras on the roads. There's farm watchers. There's security companies. Security companies, they help a lot. And I'm not saying it because I'm involved in security. I'm saying this out of experience. It's security companies and farm watchers and those stuff is making a hell of a difference.
But I also would imagine if, like you say, that the overwhelming majority of these cases, the suspects are people who have access to the farm. They're current farm workers, or they might be ex-farm workers who know the security gaps, etc. Patrolling around isn't going to stop that. It's like when we say, sexual abuse is something that happens inside the house. It's not the stranger danger. So if you're looking outside, you're totally ignoring the big problem inside. So I would assume that when it is employees, current or former, patrolling on the farm roads isn't going to stop that attack from happening. It might help you catch the person when they're fleeing afterwards, but I mean, afterwards is too late. It's an internal issue, really.
Prof, it's a very difficult crime to stop. As I say, because of the vulnerability of the people, it's rural, they stay far from each other. A farmer has to have a routine, or a guy, he has to go out, he has to sometimes sell stuff from the house, like cattle or whatever, sheep. There's access to the farms because of this, and it's a very difficult thing to stop proactively. Let me put it that way. It's very difficult.
So where to from here? I mean, just in terms of what you guys are doing, I guess you just carry on and help where you can, catch people afterwards. Or do you think there's like a campaign of training farmers on how to better look after their security? I mean, I kind of almost like feel like it's in a way a lost cause.
And if I may, is there a way to, model the relationship that you have with the police, in other parts?
Prof, as I say, with the safety of the farms, every farmer is responsible for his own safety and stuff. And one thing we must also remember, it's easy to say, put up electric fencing, do this, do that. Financially, security costs you. If you go and look what a guard costs you to put there, or, as I say, electric fencing, cameras, whatever, it's expensive. And all the farmers can't handle this financial pressure, or the finances are just not there to do this. So it's a difficult situation coming down to that. And then with relation to the police poll, you just have to work with the guys. I mean, you work hand in hand. If you approach a policeman, I get to a policeman, I'm telling him straight, listen, I've got this experience, I can help you. I'm here to assist you. You're going to look good if I solve your case with you. Mm-hmm. So just approach them in the right way. And sometimes you get challenges that don't want to work with you. Sometimes happens, I must be honest. You sometimes get a guy that gives you a lot of nonsense. And as the prof said, myself, when I was in the police, was not very... The private sector and the private detectives especially, you kept them away from me because I always thought he's going to be clever and he's going to tell you what to do and whatsoever. But there are challenges there, but we are there to help each other. We're all fighting the same cause. We're all fighting crime. So if we can get it on that level, then it's 100%.
Yeah, because, one of the things that comes up a lot on the show is what we mentioned earlier, is just the loss of expertise from the police. And, the repercussions of that are deep, because it's very difficult to replace that expertise. Somebody has to go through a whole life cycle of building a career in that particular discipline to become an expert again. And, it seems like it's important to find a way to curb this brain drain, if you like,
I must say, I get that question a lot. People ask me, why don't I train people? What's going to happen if our guys are done in 4 or 5 years? My concern that I have, as I say, when I was a young policeman, you learned from detectives that were there. You became a learner detective. You learned from guys who had all the experience. They trained you. They took you through the phases. You don't become an experienced detective in 1 or 2 years. It takes you a lot of time in the field. It takes you a lot of time. You have to have the feel for it. And to teach a person, I mean, academically, I can give a guy a lot of stuff to go through, but to do the job and to really become a good detective, unfortunately, takes time. And then I say the leadership must be there, and you must learn from the older guys, and that's not happening anymore. I don't know what's going to happen in 4 or 5 years. Most of the guys with experience are leaving now. Most of the guys already left, but the other guys are leaving now as well. What's going to happen after that? I don't know. It's a big challenge.
We'll at least get them on Profiler so that folks can watch the channel and pick up bits and pieces here and there. That's for sure. That's one. Yeah. So we'll do our little. We'll do our little bit. I just want to go back to some of the comments, if I might, guys. I find it interesting here. We have a comment from Monica who said you should watch 2 uploads: Farm Murders, paid for by ANC and EFF, and Plus Murder: The Killing Fields. I just bring this up because what's interesting, I think, is how, here we have a guest on the show tonight who is really, really hands-on experienced in the types of cases that are causing such a heated discussion. And it's interesting how people keep can still maintain a distance from that and go, okay, but look at this other thing that I watched. I don't know, Gerard, if maybe you want to comment on this. Is that kind of, you can present somebody with, look, this is a guy with, 25, 30 years of experience who's speaking from firsthand knowledge, who works on these types of cases, who would see if there was some deeper conspiracy, if you like. What is it that keeps people from making that, or keeps them stuck in that place,
I think I've touched on it last time. I think it's like any emotional issue, like politics is another good example. People don't vote based on the facts. How many people go and research their party, how many bills were passed, this decision they made? You vote for a party because of your emotions. And I think in other types of emotional issues like farm attacks, because it evokes strong emotions in people, and I mean, murders should, that people want to believe that it is political or it is genocide, they're going to stick to that. No matter what people like Sakkie says, or last week the Cock, they'll just say, this is nonsense, that's not true, I know this. And because people it's like voting with your emotions. People will deal with these. It's like if you want to take the Israel-Gaza issue, people are going to have their strong opinions about it. They're going to stick to it. And anything else is just to the contrary. Yeah. Or it's like watching American news. I mean, you get the right, like Fox news stations that all have this kind of view of things. And you have the sort of leftist news stations. And people just watch what they want to. They also hear what they want to, and that becomes the self-reinforcing, reinforces your beliefs. And I can promise you, I mean, if you go onto YouTube, you will find on this issue of farm attacks, people that'll be promoting or having sort of a documentary or whatever you want to call it, that will 100% make this out to be genocide, and other people saying something else.
Yeah,
people are going to believe what they want to believe. And that's their right. I mean, you're welcome to believe whatever you want to believe. But, that's why I say it's always, but it is interesting to speak to people like Sakkie, who works on these things, has no incentive to say it is or it isn't genocide or not. And if it was, I think all of us would be happy to say, yeah, it's genocide, something, and that needs to be dealt with as a genocidal issue. Or if it's just crime, it needs to be dealt with as a crime issue. So I think it just comes back down to, and I'm talking in circles now, it's an emotional issue, and people react to it emotionally and make their minds up emotionally. Sorry, that's the best way I can try and explain it.
For sure. Okay.
If I can just come in here, Prof. But the problem, as I say, it's not politically linked to this stage. We think it's normal crime or it happens all over the show, but it doesn't help to go and chant, kill the boer, kill the farmer, and from guys that go in front of 100,000 people and promote this. And what's the motive? What's the reason for that? I mean, where are we getting to? Why are we doing it? And that's what also goes hand in hand with the people that want to say genocide. They gave them a reason. They put wood on the fire. I mean that's what's happening, and we can't run away from that. We can say it's not genocide, but it's not. But we can't run away from that part also. We must see, as you say, it's an emotional thing. The people look at it in that way, and obvious this thing stirs it. It's not good.
No, I agree 100%. On that topic of singing songs like that, my personal view, and again, people don't have to agree with it, is this isn't the 70s and 80s where it's the struggle against apartheid. Those songs belong back then. Personally, I don't think they should be sung now, in the same way that we've changed lots of things. I was thinking about it earlier today. Like in cricket, you had things, what was it? I'm not a cricketer, so forgive me, but there was this one particular movement called a coolie creeper. And of course, we don't use the term coolie anymore, so we changed that name. So I think something should belong in history and relegated to a historical time, whether it's statues, etc. My bigger concern as a psychologist, I know how easily people are influenced. I mean, just looking at YouTube, you will find stuff that supports your view, no matter what bizarre view you have in the world. And I think it's for the people who are easily influenced out there that would hear things like, kill the boer, kill the farmer. They don't understand that this was a historical chant from the 70s and 80s. And how might that influence? It's like when the other, Bekele once said, shoot to kill, when he was the national chief of police. How is that going to influence some of the people who hear that to shoot earlier than they should be shooting, or to shoot irresponsibly? And I think that, as a psychologist, is my worry, is that you have people who are, I'm going to use the term feeble-minded, who will react to politicians, whether it's Donald Trump, whether it's Julius Malema, saying things and will go out there and react to it. So I think that's for me the biggest danger. Any high-profile person says something, people will listen. The 99% of the people, or 90% of the people who are normal-minded won't go out and kill anybody. But how about those people who have their own issues, who are whatever? Yeah. How could that influence that person? And I think from that perspective, I agree. We just shouldn't be saying those things, because I just don't think it helps.
And young people especially do not have a living memory of that political context. They just don't. So, it's much easier for them to just take it at face value. I agree. I think we're better. Surely we're better than that, and we've kind of evolved beyond that kind of irresponsible. It just feels irresponsible, doesn't it? I've got a question here from Miles Duplessis. In your opinion, do private security companies and farming community watches have a great impact on crime reduction? If they weren't established, would the outcome be the same, or would it be increased?
So that's, as I answered previously, as I said previously, obviously the security companies and the neighbor watches, the farm watches are making a big difference. They make a hell of a difference. And if you take them away, the crime will escalate even more. So they definitely play a very important part in the proactive stopping of the crime or making it better, or definitely they have got an impact. There's no two ways about it.
Because we used to have, obviously, up until probably the early 2000s, the commandos, which were sort of I don't know what the best way to describe them would be, army people, army reservists who would then be allocated to a local commando, and they would do their own patrols in the area. Now, I know, unfortunately, I think partly what got those shut down was the whole Boerenmag. It was a breeding ground or a place where they were getting hold of weapons and recruiting people. So I think that might have not have helped for the continued existence of things like the commandos. But with something of that nature, whether it be within SAPS or again bringing the military in, do you think that's in some way be helpful, or is that not the right avenue? Like we see the military being stuck in Khayelitsha. I don't know if that's a great idea, but what's your thoughts on that?
No, Prof, the commandos helped us a lot. In the murder and robbery days, the commandos they worked a lot with us. They went to hit compounds, they closed down the roads. So they had their part, they played their part definitely in the proactive part of the crimes and stuff, and it definitely helped. At this stage, as I say, the farm watches and the neighborhood watches, that stuff is trying to take that over in the private sector, and that's all I see how it's going to happen. I don't think the force will ever again have enough reservists to do it. I'm dead honest here. The army, we know in what situation they are at this stage. So privately, the private security companies, the neighbor watch, the farm watches, those stuff is definitely the way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Gerard,
great.
Okay. Yep. No. I can jump. Let me see what we have here. This from Tracy. You say you would never stay on a farm. Would this include staying on a plot closer to town? I mean,
that's also a small holding. That's also a small holding. I won't stay there. Sorry, it's
okay.
That's my personal feeling. I'll stay in town in a security complex, and that's why I will stay. I'm also away a lot from home because of my work. So the poor wife sits alone at home. So I'd rather stay in a complex than in a small holding or a farm. But that's a personal opinion, and I'm stuck to that. I won't stay on a farm or a small holding.
We often talk here about just how the degradation of the police and just some of the issues there with what's going on. And a lot of it seems to stem back to when a lot of the specialist units, like we've mentioned, were shut down. And we kind of talk about that happening from around the late 10s, if you like, the Jackie Salibi era. What do you put that down to? Why do you think that has happened when these units were so excellent?
That's exactly what the problem is. I can't see the reason for it. Up until today, I can't see the reason for that, but that is the biggest blemish that ever happened to the police. When that happened, and when they closed down the detective part, where detectives started falling under the station commissioners that didn't have their own say anymore, and their own commanders and their own vehicles and stuff, that obviously has a big impact. And closing down the specialized units, you'll never get them up and running again like it was in that days. Unfortunately, experience is gone. They can tell me whatever they want to, they'll never get it on that level again.
Wow. And then just relating to kind of organized crime, which, is clearly an issue in the country. Do we see a lot of that seeping out of the cities? I think we often think about organized crime as being kind of urban based. Are we seeing organized crime seeping out into the rural communities?
Yeah, we do. If you look into the copper industry, the copper thefts and stuff, the stealing of the coal with the transport and stuff, definitely the organized crime is in the rural areas also. Obviously more in the cities and more in the bigger places, but definitely there's syndicates that operate in this, as I say, the transformers, the stealing of the copper on the farms, the transport, the hijackings of transport vehicles, the maize that's been hijacked, all that stuff. So yeah, serious crimes is also, organized crime is also a problem in the rural areas, definitely.
Yeah. Gerard, if you don't have a question, I'm going to go back to a question from Arlu here. Sakkie, in your opinion, who is the best neighborhood watch structure to join? As there are so many, and as a farmer, it's difficult to distinguish what or who to choose from. So, do you have some guidelines on, who people can look to for this kind of assistance?
It's difficult. It depends on from area to area. It will depend on which area you're staying in. Myself, I can speak from an area that I live in. I know which to join and not to join. I'm not going to sit here and promote a certain neighbor watch and take down another one. But obviously, it depends from area to area. You know in your area who's active. You pick up who's active, who's helping, who's assisting. From there, you can make the choice. But what I'm trying to say is join something. Try and form part of any form of neighbor watch, farm watch. Try your level best. Get involved. All of us are responsible for crime. To prevent the crime and stuff. All of us are in a way are responsible.
I think that's such an important message, And I mean, we're not talking about creating kind of vigilantism here. What we're talking about is that, if we see collectively as a citizenry that there's an issue, and it's not being dealt with by the people that we're selecting as our leaders, then if we're not taking the responsibility onto our shoulders to do constructive things to deal with that, then, in a sense, you're almost becoming complicit with it. So, it does seem like we're in a situation where it's almost kind of becoming a point of, almost a patriotic thing to want to get out there and do something about the crime situation.
No, the problem is crime is affecting all of us. I know a few persons in South Africa that's not affected by crime.
Exactly.
Everybody, if you speak to them, they have a relative that was either assaulted or in a farm attack, domestic violence, whatever the case, raped. There's always a form of crime. Not always, but most of the people in South Africa are affected by crime. That's the place we're living in. That's how it is.
Yeah. What would you say is the most common kind of murder that you come across, specifically talking about murders? What is the motive? What would you say is the most commonplace? And just some of the victimology. What do you see most of?
It depends. As I say, domestic violence, there's a bigger role there where there's murders happening overboard there. And then there's financial gain, robberies, house robberies that turn into murders on the small hijackings that turn into murders. So it's a lot of financial gain. Obviously, the robberies plays a big part, but also then the domestic side, the violence in houses, in families, right? On relative, that's also a big concern. So, as I said previously, violent crime is a problem in South Africa all over the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I've got a comment here. Would like to get in contact with Sakkie as I have a farm watch and think Sakkie can teach us a lot about what to do. If you would like to, reach out and find out more about what it is that Sakkie does, then you should look out for Bosveld Misdaad Ondersoeke on Facebook. Yes, Sakkie, is that right? Where can people
find you?
Okay, so
they can find my number and my details there. Sorry.
Okay. Gerard.
Yeah,
I'm going to have a little look at questions here.
Yeah, you scroll through the questions.
Yeah.
One of the things that Osman was raised, we always think of farm attacks as being, as you said, the farmer being attacked. Do you, in your experience, I mean, do you find a lot with two farm workers, maybe a Friday night, too much alcohol, that there's a lot of violence or even murders taking place between farm workers? And would that then be counted as a farm murder?
Yeah, I think any attack or any murder, any robbery that occurs in a small holding or a farm is seen as a farm murder. But I must say, sometimes the workers are also victims. They get tied up and they get overpowered, especially to gain entrance to the farm itself, houses or premises. And then also a lot of farms are not occupied by the owners themselves. It's the workers that stay there. So they also go through attacks and they also get robbed and stuff.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, this may be a difficult question to answer. I mean, if you think about some of these ones where there was a lot of really unnecessary violence, like the torture violence that people like to highlight in these attacks, and you catch these guys, I mean, do they ever kind of show some sense of remorse for what they've done in these very horrific things? Or is it just kind of like, meh?
No, it's like it's everyday thing. It's no remorse, or most of the times there's no remorse. And when you catch the guy, he's this calm and quiet guy. You can't believe he just slit someone's throat or just tortured someone with a iron or with a whatever hammer. Or what they mostly, when you arrest them, they just feel sorry for themselves, and put it that way.
And do you find that they typically also have criminal records, or not necessarily?
Prof, most of the time it escalates. It starts with a housebreaking, a theft here and there, but sometimes it's just plain the first case they commit a murder. And why? You will be better equipped to tell us why. I mean, that's more. But sometimes it escalates. It's a crime that escalates. They start in the youth of their theft, housebreakings, escalates. Other times the first thing they commit to do is a murder.
So I mean, even sort of getting a police clearance certificate before you employ someone is no guarantee that, you're not going to become a victim from someone that you've employed.
No, it's obvious not a guarantee, but it's always good to do it. And there's certain things to do. I mean, take the guy's fingerprints, take his photo, take some of his details. Just try and get detail from your workers. I mean, out of experience, I can tell you I worked on a case where somebody was murdered in Lepalale, and we caught some of the Zimbabwean guys. The last guy, they told me he's Tabazimbi. I said, why do you call him Tabazimbi? They said, no, he comes from Tabazimbi. So now I had to look for Tabazimbi. Where am I going to look for Tabazimbi? It's a challenge. Really, we laugh. And the Zimbabwean guy gets to a farm. The farmer, somebody decides today he's going to call him Ben, and he's Ben from that day on. Even if he's Vuzi or someone else, he gets that name. And most of the Zimbabweans, as we know, they are not. I'm referring to Zimbabwe. Sorry for that. Zimbabweans, Mozambicans, Lesotho. Most of the foreigners, we don't have detail of them. Obviously, we haven't got the fingerprints on the system. We've got it. So it's quite difficult to trace them since the crime was committed.
And I mean, once they've gone back over the border, is it become, even if you've identified them, is it how often do we get them back into the country for prosecution?
Yeah, that's a very big challenge. As you know, Prof, we sometimes get some of the people extradited and we get them back, but it's a challenge. If they move over the border, it's not a thing that's going to happen in a day or two to arrest them or get them over here again. Mostly, luckily, they come back again after a while and then they get arrested. But if they move the border out of the country, it becomes a challenge, as you know.
And with these cases, I mean, like with serial cases, there's some different things you would do differently because it's a serial murderer, or in these kind of cases, you would do it a bit differently. In these types of instances, the farm murders, is it just good old-fashioned basic police work? Or are there some special things that you would do in a farm murder that you wouldn't do, say, in a normal murder to try and identify the suspect?
As I said, the first thing you start with, you must make the connection to the farm. That's where you start. There will always be a connection to the farm in some way, and you have to make that connection. From there, it becomes easier, but you have to sort out that, is it the old worker that left? Was there someone that stayed there that came to visit? Was there a guy there doing thatching, fencing, that kind of stuff? There's always a connotation. You must make that connotation. If you make that, then you're halfway there.
So again, that comes back to this, what you're saying, that it's 99% of the time it's somebody who has a history there. So that's part of your strategy is you're going to start who's not here, who's missing, who has some issues, what. And that's going to be your starting victim, your suspect pool.
Now that's where you start. You must really spend time on that, because it's something, small thing. Somebody would have stolen a small stove or a lawnmower or something years ago, and he left the farm or a month or two previously. It's a thing that you don't look at. You ask a guy, did you ever chase someone away? Was it someone that committed a crime? He'll tell you no. Then you say, think clearly and think a bit. And he says, no, okay, this guy stole a lawnmower, or this guy. That's why I say there's always a connection. Farm attack doesn't happen without a connection. Maybe once in a while, but mostly you have to make that connection.
See, it's interesting. It's again, it comes back. We come back to this a lot. That the foundation, one of the foundations of great police work is knocking on doors in the immediate vicinity, speaking to people, what's been going on, who's been talking to who's been doing what, who's been having issues. It's interesting that we come back to these kind of fundamentals a lot. And talking about then technology, we've got a comment: CCTV and drones should be a part of protection afforded to farmers, and it should be government's responsibility to do so because critical infrastructure such as farms are protected in other countries. Now, just pair this with the comment you made about never staying on a farm. Do you not feel that there are do we not have the technologies that you could fortify this environment with? And how do you feel about kind of the use of technology locally? In your experience, when new technologies have been applied, how well have they been maintained, utilized, etc.?
No, technology obviously helps. You look at the drones only. Drones made a hell of a difference in our lives. And the camera footage, all that stuff. Every technology or any technology you can use, it's obvious something that helps you. It's assists you. So it's always good to use it.
But I think with regard to Ishara's question, how many farms are there? Thousands? How big are they? They're bloody huge. So the practicality of trying to cover that amount of area with CTV drones, I just think it'll be a thing where rich people who can afford it on their fancy farms would be using that technology. Probably the other 80% would just not have it, and government could never afford to do that for all the farms that are out there. It's just the size is just too immense,
And there are plenty of other aspects of policing that need to be digitized first. I'm sure there are priorities before we get to super high tech drones covering the country. There are some maybe just less paperwork and a bit more digital kind of capturing of information, dockets and that kind of stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, that's what I say. There are so many challenges around detectives, how many dockets they carry, how many cases they have to work on, vehicles that are not running, cell phone airtime that they don't have. There's so many little things that are big issues that must be looked first at before we get to the drones and this stuff. And as I previously said, as the prof also said now, a farmer is responsible for his own safety. There's no company in the world, I don't care who you are, who's going to tell me he's going to look after all the farmers, he's going to safeguard all the farmers. It's impossible, you can't.
Yeah, absolutely. From David, good evening all. Former detective constable for just under 10 years and currently 7 years at municipality. How do we ensure the laws assist security and not make it impossible to stay compliant?
That's what I say. You have to work on your relations. You have to be hands-on with the police and take it from there. You have to, as I say, we need each other. You have to get that work relation right. And there will be challenges, as I said, but you have to work around it. It's a thing that you have to deal with, but you have to work together. There's no other way. You can't do it alone. I can't work without the police. The police sometimes can't work without me. If you get to that relation, you start realizing that, and you get cases that are solved now. You've got a lot of successes on cases, and obvious it helps. It helps the work relation.
That touches on the comment, I think, that's just above David's one, about the government putting forward this bill to disarm private security companies. That I think almost and I think that's the kind of stuff, the political bullshit that does need to be challenged by our politicians, and which means we need to be chasing up our ministers and local representatives and voting differently, because that is nonsense. That's not going to help in terms of keeping people safe in our country. So I think it's multiple levels. You've got that good old-fashioned cop on the ground who just has to use his or her brain. You've got technology when it's available. You've got people pushing it on a political level. There's no one way to fix all of this. It's a multi-pronged approach. I'm sorry, that's kind of a very generic thing to say.
Yeah.
No, but we know the impact of the security companies in the country and what they do and how they're involved in crime and stuff. If they close down the security companies or they disarm them, I don't know where we're going down. Then they're all the way then.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, guys. Well, we've been at it for an hour now, and we've probably, as far as I'm concerned, Gerard, we've covered everything I kind of had on my to-do list here. Any kind of last thoughts or any last questions that we haven't covered?
Sure. Not that Sakkie, perhaps you should offer if there's anything else you want to. Oh,
Yeah.
yes, sorry. I just see somebody just pop in. Miles popped in a very good question because I often hear about this, but I have my doubts. The issue of
I'm going to pop it up.
verstekens, yeah, and symbols marking outside to communicate.
Yeah,
Your
good
thoughts
one.
on that, Sakkie?
Yeah, Prof, that's the question that I knew is going to pop up sometime. There are signs put out like exhibits that are marked, places where people go enter premises, but I'm not into the Africa signs at all. This thing of putting out signs, there stays 3 people in the house, or this is the situation, I'm not for it. I don't believe in it. As I say, the perpetrators know the place. There's WhatsApp locations you can send. There's technology and stuff. Why would you put out? And the thing is, they say signs are put out, and here comes this heat squad, and they stay on the farm. And then something goes wrong. They don't commit. They don't do the attack. If this African signs were so correct, why don't they wait for the guys and arrest them or prevent the farm attacks? As soon as it doesn't take place, they tell you, no, they prevented it. How do they prevent that? So I'm not saying it does not exist, as I say, where they mark places to go in, where they mark exhibits that have to pick up later, but I'm not into this thing of saying there's 3 guys staying in the house and this or that. And previously I saw where there were signs, and then it was the farmer himself who put something there. So I'm not into it. I don't believe in it.
And it comes back to what you said now, that if 99, in your opinion, as you said, 99.9%, it's somebody who does work at the farm or used to work at the farm, they know who and where and how many people. I mean, do you need to leave signs outside? It doesn't seem to fit in with the fact that it's actually people who know the victims anyway.
And that's what I say, Prof. And there's not a hit squad that comes in. If a hit squad comes in, they'll come in with bulletproof assault rifles. They'll be geared for it. It's normal criminals. They come in as sometimes with a panga, sometimes with a very special. And it's normal. It's guys that knows the place. As I say, why would you put out, who are you putting the signs out for? If you're known to the farm, you know the place you go with, mostly. So
you're there, you're helping.
I don't believe in it. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah. Great.
Okay. Well, gents, I mean, I think it's been a great discussion tonight. I'd like to say thank you to Louwrens for your super chat there. We appreciate you. And to Shelley for your super sticker. Thank you very much for the contribution. Guys, of course, we do appreciate you contributing to our effort to bring you these kinds of stories and incredible guests like Sakkie on a weekly basis as well. I'll just check if we've got 1 or 2 last questions. Maybe look for the signs that people are observing, like rubbish. Or I've just moved from Peter to the West Coast to see thousands of new high. Okay, so we've got Colin here saying he's just moved from Pietermaritzburg to the West Coast and he sees thousands of new high-price housing going up. The Western Cape was where we will all land. So I don't know. There we go, guys. So
Thanks for that contribution to the conversation, Colin.
Exactly. I'm staying in Joburg. Thank you so much, Sakkie, for joining us tonight. We'd love to invite you back to focus on individual cases. I think that's really what we do here. We're not trying to really be a political chat show. We're trying to speak to people that can deliver us some of their truth from their experience. And we're very lucky to have folks like you joining us who have such incredible depth of experience. And we just take our hat off to you and appreciate and respect everything you do to keep folks safe and protected.
Thank you, Sakkie.
Paul, thanks a million for having me. I really appreciate it, and thanks for your program also. It was a pleasure to be on it.
Yeah,
thank you.
Great.
Thanks,
well,
Sakkie.
Consider yourself a friend, a profiler, and we'll see you again soon where we'll deep dive into and kind of get a real sense of your detective prowess as we unpack a case or two that you solved. Okay. Thanks, guys.
It will be a pleasure to see you guys again. Thanks.
Great, thanks.
Paul,
Gerard,
before we jump
please.
off?
No, me and you. Come on, let's go for it. What are we talking about?
I'm going to do a bit of a promo.
Let's do it. Plug it. I'm going to give you the camera. I'm going to count you down. You ready? And we'll do proper direction. And in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, action.
Well, okay, so obviously some people might be watching this in the future. So I'm going to just give today's date as the 3rd of June. And for those of you that are in Gauteng tomorrow night, that's Wednesday, 4th of June, at the Exclusive Books in Pretoria, in Brooklyn, Pretoria, the Exclusive Books. There is the book launch of this book by Karen Mitchell. It's called High Treason Club, The Boeremark on Trial, and it covers the whole sort of length and breadth of the Boeremark investigation. For those of you that are a bit young and might not remember, in the early 2000s, there was a collection of sort of right-wingers. Many of them actually lived in and around where Sakkie used to work. And long story short, they kind of planned one of these big coups. It kind of unraveled to the point where they just started planting bombs from Durban to Soweto to the police air wing. They actually almost actually assassinated Nelson Mandela when he was going to do a visit to a rural school. So this book came out recently. Not only was Karen a journalist who covered the story at the trial and got to know a lot of the role players very personally, and that's what I like about this book. It's a very personal involvement. But a friend of our channel, retired Colonel Tolle Vreugdenburg, who has spoken a couple of times, I think, on our podcast and here, was instrumental in actually, he should almost be like a co-author, was instrumental in helping this book become what it is today. So tomorrow, 6 p.m., Exclusive Books in Brooklyn. Tolle and Karen will be there, and I will be the sort of moderator doing the sort of fielding the questions, etc. So if you're in the area tomorrow, 6 p.m., come and check out the book.
So you're going to be there?
I will be there.
So folks, if you're watching, the most gorgeous man in crime is going to be there.
That was last week's comment. It's not again this time.
Gerard, we can bring back once a week, okay? Just to make you feel good at the end of the show. Okay, we'll just bring this up once a week.
Thanks
so
again,
guys,
Paul.
get along and you can meet the most gorgeous man in crime. And please, can we get Tolle back on the show? When can we get Tolle back? Let's talk Boeremark and let's do the case. Let's get Tolle and the author if we can, Gerard. Eh? How's that?
It's a fascinating case. I think as I say, I wrote the introduction to the book and I said, I thought I knew about the case because I had a little tiny role. I tell you, when I read the book, I learned so much that I didn't realize about this group and really potentially how much trouble they could have caused in our country. So very, very interesting piece of modern history.
It's an incredible story. My favorite part is the part when Nelson Mandela was very much in the line of sight, and had he not changed his plans last minute and gone by road instead of air, then there may have been a very different past 20 or 30 years in South Africa. So that we must definitely cover that case again. You can go back and find it, actually. Find the previous Tolle episode that we did and check that out. It really is interesting. He's and also just another incredible policeman and human being, exactly. Okay, Gerard, so that's great. Anything else to plug? Anything else to talk about? I mean, don't forget Profiler Diaries 1 or 2, guys, as well. Okay. And like I said, if you'd like to, the one thing I do want to say to people, now that we're starting to kind of do better and we're getting lots of subscribers, we're up over 18,000 and we're getting great views. If anyone out there would like to kind of, I don't know, sponsor the show or speak to us about advertising on the show, then you can reach out to us at profilerafricainfo@gmail.com, profilerafricainfo@gmail.com. We've got a great audience. And if you'd like to speak to them, there's an opportunity there. Reach out to us. That'll be cool. Thank you, Gerard. I am going to pretty much say that, we've kind of wrapped this farm murders discussion. We've done 2 weeks of it. I'd say where I stand is that, and I'm sure I speak for the both of us, is that every South African life counts. Every violent death matters. And if we focus too much on things like the victim's race, then we're not fighting for justice for all. We're just keeping score. Crime is something that affects us all, I think. And I think we all have to be vigilant. And I think we all have a lot to do to hold people to account in South Africa. We're certainly not here to push a narrative. We're here to ask questions, shine a light on matters, and we try to bring expert opinions to do that, so that you don't have to listen to my opinion.
And you're welcome to still have your opinion.
Exactly. Because if I told people my opinion, I'm kind of more in the Thanos world of politics, where I kind of think wiping out half of the universe would be great for us all. So, I'm not left or right. I'm a Thanosian, if that's anything. Are farm murders real and horrific, Gerard? Yes. Are they a statistical genocide? No. Is our data system broken? It probably is. Is all murder in SA horrifyingly violent? Yes, without a doubt it is. And is the real enemy poverty, trauma, and a crumbling justice system, not some evil master plan? You can bet your life on it, I think. Unfortunately, betting our lives is something we all do these days when we go outside in South Africa. So subscribe to the channel. Check out our South African serial and the content we like to bring you that's informing you more about the situation here in South Africa. And trust no one. Thanks, Gerard.
Yes, everybody. Thanks for watching.
I am a human being and I killed human beings.
Before I knew it, I'd fired 4 shots at the door. I kept on shouting for Eva to phone the police.
Tests are underway to determine if a serial killer is on the loose in Centurion, Pretoria.
The dead won't bother you. It's the living you gotta worry about.